and welcome to the podcast where film people film people. Today, I am joined by the incredible filmmaker, the one who is behind the most popular film festival, Run and Gun, Joel McCarthy. Welcome.
Great to be here.
I want you to tell me the first memory you have, if you can remember, of when you were like, oh yeah, I need to be in the film industry. I need to make movies.
I mean, it's kind of a very juvenile story, but so have you heard of Jackass? I'm sure you've heard of that franchise. So before that franchise came out, there was something called CKY, Camp Kill Yourself.
Okay.
Which had a lot of the same people from Jackass. And my friend got an older sibling to buy a copy of CKY from a skate shop. That's where they sold it. And it was this like super lo-fi videos of like really dumb guys doing stunts and pranks. And it was super juvenile and silly. But we loved that tape. We watched it so much. We loved it. We watched every little moment. And for me, what was exciting about that is it was really lo-fi, and yet it was a piece of media that we loved so much. And it really showed me like, hey, we could do this too. So at that point, because we were dumb boys, we were like, let's do stunts and pranks and like be juvenile delinquents with a camera. And so I'd borrow my mom's camera, and we just got into filmmaking. But mostly it was like doing dumb things, having to go to the hospital a lot.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, we like, I was like, by the time I was like 13, I'd videoed like numerous people like breaking bones and bleeding and like terrible stuff.
But people want to watch it.
Yeah,
so...
it was mainly for us though.
Okay,
and because this is like pre-YouTube. And so eventually after like another we had a bit of a serious emergency where a guy rode his bike off of a school and like his hand went right into his handlebars. There was a lot of blood, and at that point I was like,
wow,
maybe we should tell stories instead.
Right? Yeah, maybe we shouldn't use our lives for content. That's funny. That's a good start, though. I want to know why you created Run and Gun specifically for the indie filmmakers, and how Run and Gun actually came to be.
So yeah, I did 2 back-to-back feature films when I was like out of film school. I was really ambitious. I don't know how I pulled so many favors, but I also knew I could edit myself and all that sort of stuff. And I traveled to all these festivals, and I'd come back to go to Vancouver film events, and I kind of felt myself growing cynical of the Vancouver film scene. I felt like, I'd go to these film events where there were, B-list, C-list, some A-list celebrities. There was all these like really cool parties. There was these moments where I was really connecting with these filmmakers and stuff like that. And then I'd come back to like Vancouver film events, and things felt really stuffy and self-important at the time. And so me and my friends, and then, a lot of them had a lot of censorship things and what have you. And growing up, I grew up in a house that had a fair bit of like censorship of like what I was allowed to watch, what I wasn't. And so I felt, and I was a middle child. So
well, then you're screwed.
So I felt like I needed to rebel and stuff like that. So we kind of created Run and Gun with me and 2 of my buddies on a whim. It was like really random. We were starting our own little production company, and we're like, we should start our own film event. And, we tried so hard to advertise. We tried to get certain, institutions involved in it, and they all kind of like rejected us, and we're like, look, this is like a silly little thing that you kids are doing, and let the adults do the real things. We'll sponsor them, etc. And so we kind of just took that as a freedom of like jester's privilege of like, well, if no one's going to take us seriously, let's be wild. Let's have no censorship rules. Let's have let's let anyone join, whether it's an 8-year-old filmmaker, an 80-year-old
Mhm.
filmmaker, an amateur, someone who is like some weird arts kid or whatever.
Yeah.
And so I just really loved the chaos that it would invite
Yeah.
of what people would bring to it. And yeah, so like the first year we had like 16 teams.
Mhm.
We worked so hard to make it happen. The second year was like 18 teams. And now this last year we had 150 teams and it sold out in 40
Crazy.
minutes. And like we could have had more teams after that. It was just like,
Wow. How did you come up with the 3-day structure?
so I mean, 48-hour film competitions have happened for a number of years.
Mhm.
So I kind of, I did I've done I think I've participated like because I started when I was like 10 participating in
Mhm.
them. So
Oh, wow. That's
I
young.
or maybe it wasn't 10, maybe it was 13 or something. But I've been so I had done like probably like 6 48-hour film festivals. I've done two or three 72-hour film competitions, etc. And I love the idea of 48 hours because you pretty much anyone can take a weekend off type
Yeah.
thing, and that's like there's something accessible about that. And the one thing that I see over and over again is like people will go years without creating something because it's just tough to like line everything up,
Mhm.
but there's something like very accessible of like, oh, it's 48 hours.
Yeah.
And I think that like that rush of an excitement and the bonding that happens in that time and like that play
Mhm.
aspect where you just can't second guess yourself is like it's a lot of fun. And so and like the more crazy side of it is with 48-hour film competition, you can there's a certain level of sleep deprivation that can happen
Yeah.
that is like
Oh, yeah.
within reason. Like I did a
Mhm.
crazy eights and I didn't sleep for like 4 days, I think,
Right.
like, or I'd sleep like an hour at a time, and it drove me insane. But I think with 48 hours you can kind of do a little bit of like torturing
Yeah,
yourself.
48 hours, it doesn't hurt that much. You don't get any sleep within that time,
Not much.
but then you get to sleep afterwards for as long as you want. It's kind of like wash your hands, you're done with it,
Mhm.
which is nice. And then, yeah, like you said, all of them get shown, which no other festival does, which is really exciting for all filmmakers, because even if you don't place, you still get a moment of getting to view it, whether it's on the YouTube or in the theater, which is really exciting.
Yeah, I think that for me, I was really lucky when I was starting to do 48-hour film competitions that they were small enough that they would play all the
Oh,
films just
okay,
out of
yeah.
necessity. And so for me, my first stuff being put on the big screen
Mhm.
in front of strangers I didn't know was at that time. And so for me, I was really wanting to bring that in for another generation because by the time I was interested in doing
Mhm.
this, none of the 48-hour or timed competitions that I used to do existed anymore. So it's
Right.
like, okay, I do want something to be here, but I also, when I was doing those ones, they were
Mhm.
like, no swears at all, must be
Right, with
this,
rules.
must be that. And I just, I, I'm like, well, I'm not getting paid to do this. Telefilm's not sponsoring us, still won't.
Mhm.
Um, shots fired. Um,
Yes.
shade. All that sort of stuff. So it's like,
Mhm.
well, who are we trying to please? And so it's interesting. Like we'll have the odd person being like, there was a lot of swearing there. And it's
Yeah.
like, yeah, that's kind of just the vibe. And
Yeah.
it's like when we started it, we were like, in our early 20s and delinquents and stuff like
Mhm.
that. So I've only grown up so much. But it's like holding on to a piece of idealism that once meant so much to me, and so yeah, I'm curious to see how the future will go with Run and Gun, but I really hope that we can keep those ideals in there
Yeah.
because I think it does serve a certain purpose.
Mhm.
And I miss, like, there was a lot of when I was starting to like come of age and get into the arts, there was a lot of people that were really pushing the envelope in
Mhm.
certain ways and making you whether it's like uncomfortable, make you think, etc. And I think rightfully so in a lot of ways. People are like a little bit more hesitant of that.
Mhm.
Because like I used to go to like the Emily Carr used to have like an art gallery
Right?
for their school, and it was on Granville Island. You'd walk in there and it was like the most crazy subversive shit you had ever seen in
Really?
there.
Oh,
And
wow.
now I was just talking to someone who's going to Emily Carr, and like apparently that energy is gone.
Yeah.
Everyone, and rightfully so. I think there's a lot of reasons why we want to make everyone feel comfortable,
Mhm.
but I think that there is a place in the arts for that little bit of discomfort,
Yeah.
and to go and like there are there are run and gun films that I like. I hate that we played them, but I'm like I stand by
Right, you're
myself
yeah.
more than I don't like the idea of us trying to be like holier than thou and being
Mhm.
like, this is not okay, that is
Yeah.
okay. I think that the audience can walk away from a film being like, I was troubled by that one. And it's like, okay, well,
Mhm.
that's you experienced
But
something.
maybe that's a good thing. If you watch something that's offensive and it offended you, then maybe that's good because then you're just reminded that you're a good human and you can
Yeah,
walk away with that.
for
I
sure.
I really wanna I'm gonna pick your brain about festivals
Okay.
today because my boyfriend is a filmmaker,
Yeah.
and so he just kind of threw many questions my way. Ask
Yeah.
him this, and I was like, okay.
Okay.
So a lot of these are from emerging
Yeah.
filmmakers, which I'm a green actor. I'm around green people all the
Yeah.
time, and a lot of interviews that we watch or a lot of content that's out there is of people with success just sort of, saying things that are not helpful. So
Fair.
maybe you can be the one who helps out the green filmmakers a little bit.
Let's do it. Okay.
I want to know how you feel about other film festivals, and we talked about it a little bit, but how specifically they are unhelpful, possibly to the new filmmakers.
Interesting. Okay. Well, I mean, I think that every festival is different.
Mhm.
And there are ones that are worth your time and there are ones that aren't, and there are
Mhm.
ones that just want your money, and there's ones that really care about the filmmakers, etc. And I think that that's like where it's important to do like some level of homework, whether
Yeah.
it is like back in the day there was, and I think it still exists, like Movie Maker magazine top 40 film festivals worth entry fee or whatever,
Huh.
things like that. But I think if you go to a film festival that you have a film in, or that you can meet filmmakers and like some sense of community, there is a win there.
Mhm.
I think that what a lot of people do is they just want to chase those laurels. So they send a bunch of films to film festivals and maybe they get into some, but
Mhm.
like, yeah, you get some cool things on your posters. You might get like, a few fun social media posts saying you won something, but ultimately that doesn't help you so much. But
Mhm.
I think of like there were some really important festivals that I had films in, that I went to, that I
Mhm.
connected with people that I'm still collaborating and learning from now.
Mhm.
I think most noteworthy was, so if you are 25 or under, there is a film festival called Nifty, the
Okay.
National Film Festival for Talented Youth.
Okay.
They were awesome. That
Oh,
one
wow.
was so cool. It's in Seattle.
Okay.
And it's like a pilgrimage for young indie filmmakers
Mm.
around the world.
Oh,
And
nice.
I would go every year, and I was lucky to have films in it most of the years I went.
Mhm.
And like after that, I still stay in touch with some of those people. Some of them are now making like kick-ass movies
Wow.
that you hear about and all that sort of stuff. And it's been really cool just seeing that whole community grow, and like it still happens every year. It's
Mhm.
still a huge one, and they were good to like give me opportunities where
Mhm.
they got me to direct commercials for Expedia through
Oh,
them.
wow.
I got to travel to Peru to shoot something for Vitamin Angels and Vitamin Water. So like they were really cool.
Mhm.
Feel like Whistler Film Festival is a cool one here because everyone I mean, it's a little bit more of a party festival, but the cool thing is, all these people come from BC.
Mhm.
They all go to Whistler. They're all staying in cabins and stuff like that. And some of the people that I've worked with the most over the last like 10 years
Mhm.
are people I drunkenly met in a hot tub in Whistler. And so I think like building community is like a really important thing with film
Yeah.
festivals. But I think that there's a lot of these film festivals that are like these ones that happen every 2 weeks or every month, and they like just want your money and all that
Right,
sort of
of
stuff.
course.
So I think that there's a lot of not good film festivals. There's also a lot that like don't really give much chance for people to like, because I think like the big takeaways of a film festival is like, I hate this word, but it's networking.
Right.
um,
Yeah.
but I gotta find a less dirty. I don't know. I just
Yeah, I feel the same way about that word as well. It's kind of icky.
yeah, I'll try to refrain from my N words here. Um, didn't sound better. Okay, but so like for that, I think it's good. So I think it's like I think where I've shifted over time
Mhm.
was when I was starting out, I wanted to like I wanted to win awards and I wanted to sound
Mhm.
important. I want this film went to this many film festivals. Look, I can't even fit all the laurels on the poster type
Mhm.
thing. And ultimately, I found the ones I wasn't going to, I got nothing from.
Mm.
Except for sometimes they'd send you a trophy, sometimes they'd send you some laurels or something,
Mhm.
but like ultimately I paid like $50 to submit to this film festival. Then I had to like send them copies. If I did all this labor, maybe someone in the theater liked the film and wrote me, but like it wasn't as exciting. So
Yeah.
when I started traveling with my films more and thinking of it as like, oh, I really want to go to this film festival, um, that is really where it shifted. And like there's been some great film festivals I've been to.
Mhm.
And yeah, and like I was literally at a film festival in Toronto, the Canadian Film Festival, which
Yeah.
is
Oh wow.
not as well known as
Tiff,
TIFF.
no.
But it had so much industry people there. I got to meet so many people in the
Mhm.
Toronto film scene. And when I was at that film festival, I was like, why don't we have anything cool like this? Because
Right.
it was like run by people that worked on Trailer Park Boys, and
Mm.
like it like had some like fun edge to it, and
Mhm.
everyone was like getting silly, and like we were bonding so much, and there was good parties, and like and so like that was a lot of what we were like subconsciously modeling Run and Gun off
Right,
of.
because I was gonna say, if anyone were to say or be able to compare a festival in Vancouver to the one like you're describing, they would probably say Run and Gun.
Yeah, I mean we've like really and I just recently read the book a book on mindful gatherings,
Okay.
and like there's a lot that we learned over time that's like in that book is just like, you want to give everyone there for a purpose. You want
Mhm.
to really like know what people's intentions are. So like we know that our intentions are we want to share people's work, have
Yeah.
people watch them, but also have opportunities for people to meet each other. And like it's why we tediously like have name tags and things like that, because we want people to meet. And like I'm not sure if you went to our kickoff this year where we
No.
come to the next one.
I will. I
We
missed out.
we do like this networking, I hate that word. Um we do like a speed dating type
Okay.
thing
Yeah.
that really forces people to meet strangers
Mm.
exclusively. And it was just so cool, like just like even if you're just forced to bond with someone for
Mhm.
3 minutes at a time, that energy of everyone being there to like meet new people, get people on their teams, etc., was like it was electric. And I was like, okay, this is like what it's all about. And
Mhm.
we took a gamble this year being like, do you think people are going to want to come for this? Like you can come 2 hours early to this screening, and we're going to have
And
like
speed date.
we're going to do this speed dating thing.
Mhm.
And so we thought like realistically we were going to get like 30 people to show
Mhm.
up, and like we had over 250 show up for the speed
Wow.
dating, and we're like, okay, we have to plan how
Sweet.
we're actually going to do this, because
Yeah.
all our plans and envisions for this were like a max of 80 people.
Wow, that's incredible. That's really exciting because networking is really hard, and it's
Mhm.
especially hard to make meaningful connections. And that's why I hate the word networking, is cuz networking, you're only meeting people for a specific reason,
Yeah.
but to actually build a community of people that you can call and be like, "Hey, I'm making this film. Do you want to be a part of it?" And trust them and know that they're also going to be your friend is something that's really hard to find and to do, especially when, like me, I'm a shy person. So something like speed dating sounds very scary, but it's something that also could work on that. But be able to build that community, which is really exciting.
Yeah, and I mean it's ultimately this business is a lot of who you know type things, and
Yes.
yeah, I just wanted it to feel less stuffy because when I was getting started it felt daunting, like walking into rooms where like it didn't seem like anyone wanted to meet me, and
Mhm.
I'd like kind of sit in the corner and like
Yeah.
just watch and breathe heavily and
Yeah.
all that
I
fun stuff.
I'm exactly like that. Okay, I want to know now
Yeah.
how filmmakers should use film festivals as a strategy for success. But also, I want to know, because I think I have my own opinions on how people use festivals sometimes. Not everyone, but some people, where it is a end all be all. If
Yeah.
my film doesn't get in, if I do not succeed, I am not a good filmmaker. And I don't agree with that mindset. So I want to hear how actors should use it as a strategy, or sorry, filmmakers should use it as a strategy, and why it shouldn't be the end all be all.
Yeah, I think, well, it's interesting because every film has a different bit of life to it. I think I definitely thought that film festivals were the be all end all when I was starting, and there were some things that I think when I started, I was so focused on the results
Mm,
and wanting certain rewards or certain like dopamine hits
yeah.
to happen. I want to win this award. I want to, prove to, this and that. And, and some of my films did achieve those things
Mm,
that I wanted. And there was also films that I put a lot more love into and I think are better films I
mhm,
care about more that may have not gotten the same reception as others. And so, but now that I'm like, at an older reflective state,
right.
and I have the hindsight of looking back at
Mhm,
like at the years. I think like it sounds so cheesy. It's the journey is the destination, but
right.
like the most fun film, the best experiences I've ever had on set, the best camaraderie, collaboration, everything were generally from films that were less like successful by those
Mm,
metrics. But to this day, like I've not had more fun making those films. So I think like the strategy for film festivals should be ultimately, I think, to connect with people.
yeah.
It's nice to have those feathers in your cap. It's nice, like finding people who know like the barometer of films
Mhm,
and can give you that tough love or give you an idea of where your films need to go. I used to teach at VFS for a number of years,
mhm,
and my thing that I would kind of tell the students is like, if I think that you should be submitting to TIFF, to Sundance, to
yeah.
this, that, and the other, I will tell you.
Mm,
um,
mhm,
and do whatever you want with it because like I don't want to ever be crushing dreams here,
yeah.
but you know to a certain degree, like people are just throwing money away because they're like, oh, that's a big name or whatever.
Mhm,
But like someone else could watch that film and be like, yeah, this is definitely not getting into Sundance. This is
yeah.
terrible, right? I mean, you have to be delusional to be working in film. um
100%. Yeah.
you like the only like keys to success are like how delusional you are and how persistent you are. And
Mm,
if you can be delusional and persistent, you might make it.
there
But
we
if
go.
you can't if you can't be either of those things, you won't.
Yeah, that's a good
Is
point.
like
Good point. Be
so.
delusional and stick to it. I
But
like that.
yeah, I think that like I used to have this obsession with the word hope and how I
Mm.
thought it was the worst word in the English
Mm.
dictionary because people use it as this like positive thing, but it's really the act of wishing it were so. It's like
True.
not an active verb.
Hmm.
To hope is to like literally do nothing but like come
It's gonna
on, it's
happen. It's
gonna
gonna
happen.
happen, but not work towards it.
And so I think if you can suck all the hope out and
Hmm.
just like focus on the process, and if like I think it's good to like intend like, hey, I want to make a film that's going to potentially play at festivals, but
Hmm.
like I think I just like wish I could go back in time and like tell myself like the fun you have making this film
Hmm.
and the connections you make and how you made people feel, that's what's going to propel you forward.
Yeah.
And it's not necessarily going to be getting this or that. And so like I had like my final film for film school
Hmm.
did really well at film festivals. It also got like 5 million views on YouTube, and
Mm.
like I had a lot of things that I like were really going for it, and I felt like somewhere in my head that that was like going to open all these doors, and it really
Right.
didn't.
Hmm.
And
Yeah.
so it was like and so I think that like it's constantly going to feel like you're starting over, and but you're not to a certain degree, because all of a sudden you have all these extra talents, maybe you
Hmm.
have extra toys, some people that want to work with you,
Yeah.
etc. And like it's all about little building blocks. Like I started like asking like somewhat successful filmmakers and people that were uh doing really well, for the sake of like trying to communicate to my students. I was like, hey, do you have like one project that really like tipped you into this like professional world?
Hmm.
And the thing that I thought was really interesting was like nobody did.
Right.
It
Yeah.
was like, well, I did that one thing that kind of opened up this door, and
Yeah.
because I did this other thing, all of a sudden I was able to get this location from this guy, and then
Hmm.
this and that,
Yeah.
and it like all just kind of builds. And also the thing that's really exciting is like it's I'm a gardener, so I'll use seeds
Oh.
as an analogy.
Okay.
But you're just like everything you do, you're planting seeds.
Hmm.
And some things take a long time to grow, and so it can feel like you're up against like the world and nothing's giving. But if you are working with other people, being good to other people, appreciating other people, like everyone's going to grow in their own ways. But then the exciting thing that happens all of a sudden is like 10 years later, you walk into a room and you're pitching to people, and one of those seeds is in the room, and they're like, hey man, how's it going?
Oh
This guy's
yeah.
awesome.
I
We had
didn't
it.
even think of that.
And
Yeah.
like that's how like 90% of my opportunities have come,
Hmm.
was like because I said yes to doing something that maybe wasn't that exciting, maybe felt a little trivial, was
Hmm.
like, I guess I can help out on that, or yeah, sure, I can do
Hmm.
that. And so and like so all those like little yeses,
Yeah.
or yeah, sure, I'll watch your film and give you some notes, all those seeds ended up like growing into things, but you
Hmm.
just don't see it at the time, because sometimes those seeds take like a freaking decade or so to grow.
Yeah, no kidding. I don't think anyone can come into this industry and expect a fast career, skyrocket for success. We all hope,
Yeah.
to use that word, we all hope that happens, but that's just not how it is. So it's who can stay in this game for as long as possible without ripping your hair out, because it's hard. It's not easy.
Oh
All the
yeah.
failure is really hard. How did you how did you continue forward with, I'm assuming you've had failures.
Oh,
How did you keep
I'm
going?
still having them.
It's just
they're-
natural. It's part of
yeah, I
life.
mean it is tough. I think like, so I was like really, one thing I was really lucky with was when I was finishing film school,
Mhm.
we were at a really interesting time because I was able to live in a place with like a few other people in like a rundown house where each of us were paying like $350 each rent.
Nice.
So it was like unheard of rent. And so I and I was doing like I direct like videos for companies and things like that. But I do like two of those, and I had enough money to like live for like 2.5, 3 months.
Mm.
And so for me, it was like always about like spending time to be, and like we, at first in my early 20s, it was like, let's go to the club each weekend. Let's like try to like meet girls and
Yes,
like all
of
that sort of
course. Your
stuff,
20s, yeah.
and like dance, and
Mhm.
like we realized like pretty soon on like this sucks. And I was not like, I was a really awkward
Yeah.
person, and like was really uncool. so
I relate, yes.
so eventually it was like, why what if next weekend, instead of like, draining our wallets,
Mhm.
feeling shitty and drinking, like
Yeah.
I've got some ideas. Why don't we shoot this? So like
Mm.
really dedicated so many weekends to like making stuff.
Yeah.
And eventually like that was where I just got into that rhythm. And like I feel like those years I was sharpening my skills so much
Mm.
faster, because we we got into a area where we didn't care as much about, like, the self-doubt wasn't that big. We never like made it, we really like didn't make it feel like every project was life or death and super important.
Mhm.
And we made some great stuff, some jokes that I still think kill or whatever.
Mm.
But having those collaborative people just do that repetitive
Yeah.
process really helped us like grow our skills and sharpen our tools. And like I wouldn't be a quarter the filmmaker I am today if I didn't do that. But now,
Mhm.
like, having a kid, having all
Yeah.
these responsibilities, having my rent
Mm.
literally cost like significantly more than
Then
what I used to,
350,
than
yes.
$350 a month, and car payments, all that sort of
Yeah.
stuff. I find it's like it's harder for me to find time to really, work that muscle,
Mhm.
unless like someone's paying me to do that.
Of course,
And
yeah.
when they're paying me to do it, I'm not always doing the stuff that I absolutely love to be doing.
Mhm.
So yeah, I mean, it's all a journey. And I think like being able to like give yourself permission to make stuff that's not perfect,
Mhm.
and to like mess up a little is really what's important. I really lost track of where what the original question
That's
was.
okay. I think you kind of nailed it with saying, when you start to gain that success, whether that, in this case, work for money, you don't get that freedom anymore. So maybe
Yeah.
take advantage of, if, your film doesn't succeed in the way you want it to for a festival,
Yeah.
just take advantage of the fact that you got to create something that you wanted to create without so many limits and
Yeah,
restrictions.
and it might like, and like success doesn't have to mean being really good at this film festival.
Yeah.
Sometimes your film just like blows up online, and that's exciting, and
Mhm.
that is real success. Sometimes it means a lot to a few people, and like I feel like, these last couple years,
Mhm.
I've been doing more directing for pay and like TV stuff, which is awesome, but
Mhm.
doing a lot of like smaller little things where it's like I want to do a 1 day shoot or
Yeah.
whatever. And yeah, those projects I generally won't submit them to film festivals. I'll kind of just do them quietly and stuff
Mhm.
like that. But they always like end up having a few people that like really connect with them,
Yeah.
and like there's still some magic in all those. So I just like I love the process.
Mhm.
And I find like right now I'm like kind of just doing a lot of free writing on different
Yeah.
scripts, and I'm like I just want to make stuff, and I don't care if it's shiny, and I don't
Mhm.
care where it goes. Because yeah, I think I'm more, I'm less less fragile. I mean, I've been more beaten down.
Yeah, I that makes sense. You okay, so run and gun is what we all know it to be. Why did you decide to add an element of shits and gigs? Shits and giggles.
So so like the one thing with run and gun, that was is so weird that it turned into this, is
Mhm.
like it was this scrappy little thing that people would do with like the equipment around their house and
Mhm.
like all that sort of stuff. And as I started leveling up and the people around me that I knew did,
Mhm.
they all still wanted to participate. And so
Mhm.
we're coming up to our 10th year now. So now like all these like professionals want to do it, and they've got all this gear and
Mhm.
fancy toys and are willing to spend the money because they still don't get a lot of chances to play.
Yeah.
It's like everyone gets that permission to play. And I
Mhm.
think that some people get upset being like, well, that person, works on those CW shows and they're a professional camera this
Yeah.
or dolly that. And it's like, yeah, but they still want to make their own stuff and play. And so I think with the thing that's been interesting is run and gun is as much as I hate that it's done this, it's turned into an institution, right? It's this
Yeah.
giant friggin' thing.
Mhm.
There's a lot of people who participate, there's sponsors, there's teams that sink way too much money into their films. And
They look professional. I remember when I
yeah,
was watching some of them and I was like, "Oh, that's what they wanted? Oh, they are not getting that quality from mine."
oh yeah. And so I think, and like this year, the one that like won the most awards was one that was done with like five people in a forest with
Mhm.
a reasonably cheap camera.
Mhm.
So like we still have those
Yeah.
ones, but there is a lot of this like the rich kids versus kind of vibe that we didn't really intend for, but
Mhm.
these things happen. And punk rock can only be punk rock
Mhm.
until the masses start to embrace it, and then it becomes something kind of different. And so with Shits and Giggles, the idea was I wanted to reject all the things that made Run and Gun grow.
Mm. Mhm.
And so like, and also have rules of like you can't use that much equipment.
Mhm.
Everything you use has to fit in the back of a Toyota Prius. You have to spend under $250. Like all these limitations that really make it about like making something with your friends in your backyard
Mhm.
vibes is what people are like, how do you police that? It's like, well, we don't. I'm
Yeah.
not a cop.
Yeah.
But the idea is there. So, and I also wanted to have no sponsors because
Mhm.
that aspect is like trying to make sponsors happy, and
Mhm.
sponsors all want to speak. But like going to a film event where you have sponsors speaking for 45 minutes and show no
Right.
films is fucking criminal.
Yeah.
And the festivals that do that, what the fuck are you doing?
It's
Not mentioning
not the
any.
point.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So like I kind of hate that sort of stuff. So with Shits and Giggles, it just like the submission fees and the ticket sales make it so it can run itself
Mhm.
basically, and that we don't have a larger venue. It just like right this year we're just doing it 2 nights at the Rio,
Mhm.
and it'll sell out and people will be upset, and it's okay.
For big festivals,
Mhm.
what do you think is the key to getting in?
I mean, the key generally is still like the who
Yeah.
or who knows like it's kind of like a shame because I've gone to like bigger film festivals and you go to the shorts blocks, is the shorts is usually like how emerging filmmakers get in,
Mhm.
right? But you go to the shorts blocks and like almost all of them have at least B-list celebrities in them.
Mm.
So the star power thing is a very real thing. I mean, ultimately what you need to understand with a film festival is like they want bums in seats
Mhm.
is what they want to go for. So like a lot of the times what I found was there are bad feature films that have some like decently big stars, and if it's
Mm.
going to be like the Canadian premiere, like absolutely those films will get into film festivals a lot easier than
Mhm.
you making something fantastic with no stars. So if it's for shorts, the best piece of advice I can give you is like keep it short.
Mhm.
These 25-minute shorts, they can barely put maybe one or two in an entire festival. So don't make 25
Yeah.
minute films. And then beyond that, like be create as specific of a world as possible,
Mm.
because you have to be memorable in the film, like within the films, right? So if I'm watching like 2000 or 300 films, it has to be the ones that do something memorable and interesting in
Mhm.
them. The ones that are like, oh, it's about like a couple and they're like kind of breaking up and things are weird.
Right.
They're like, that's forgettable.
Yeah.
You just physically, your brain is mush after watching 13 short
Mhm.
film or 300 short films. You that can't go anywhere.
Yeah.
So being specific taking big swings, if it's a very specific interesting world that you're bringing to life, that's usually going to help if you got something to say, if there's something behind it. And then I think like the other thing to have like festival success, sometimes looking into documentaries,
Mhm.
because documentaries are one of the very few types of films that people will watch without stars.
Mhm.
We've all seen amazing documentaries where
Yes.
that had no star power because the content is more interesting for a doc than the what the world they have access to is more interesting. So yeah, I think just be specific as possible.
Mhm.
I think a lot of the mistakes that new filmmakers think is that making something broad is better,
Oh, I see. Yeah.
and broad stuff only works when you have star power.
Mm.
So if you don't have star power, you want to be as specific as possible.
Okay.
And also genre films and horror films, like those festivals, there's so many of them,
Yeah.
and because it's a specific slice of the pie, there is like an easier barrier of entry there.
Mhm.
Same with like LGBTQ
Yeah.
plus film festivals, with festivals that are specific to certain heritages and stuff
Mhm.
like that. Like I think being as specific as possible. And I know that we always think of these big Hollywood movies that can be generic, oh,
Yeah.
it's just a romantic comedy. These two
Mhm.
people, they like kind of hate each other, then they love each other in the end.
Yeah, the classics.
The classics, but like those classics always had star power there, and
Yeah.
like people don't line up to go to theaters with those kind of films without star power. It's tough.
Mhm.
I think like you can somewhat get away with it if it's about like teenagers or high school
Yeah.
students and things like that. But generally, you got to go for like a genre or something
Mhm.
like that if you want to have a shot at the non-star power thing. But that's kind of like the biggest holdup, because like you look at the films again to South by Southwest, and like these are generally like connected filmmakers.
Mhm.
Sometimes good things will slide through the cracks and get in there,
Yeah.
but also if someone's got a famous daddy and they make a film,
They're in.
they
Yeah.
have a way better shot. So
Yeah.
there is a lot of that nepotism, connections.
Mhm.
A famous actor decides they're going to direct their first feature. Well, you bet their ass they're going to have a way better job of getting a good placement with that feature.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. So would you say these are sort of the unwritten rules, obviously, who you know,
Yeah.
but also fulfilling the criteria of what the sponsors want? Do you think that's at all a part of getting into films?
I don't think it's necessary. I mean, it's like what the festival is looking for. I mean, the
Mhm.
sponsors are generally just people that are helping offset the price and stuff like
Yeah.
that. But, sometimes if the sponsor is, an oil and gas company, they
Mm.
might not want the anti oil and gas
Right. Yeah.
film or something like that. But I feel like that happens less in the arts. But
Mhm.
yeah, I think knowing what kinds of films that festival plays and rewards, I think if you can track down like what were the films that won or did well in the last 5 years and like watch those, that's going to give you a good idea of like, okay, this is how this film festival is what they're looking for and stuff like that.
Mhm.
Because like the film you would make for Run and Gun versus TIFF are two different films.
Yeah. What were some of the politics that you learned only after creating Run and Gun?
I do my best. My role on the team is to be like that asshole who hates the politics.
Good. Yeah.
And then I help find the compromises
Mhm.
there, because there are certain things. It's like, okay, well, this company is giving us, $4,000, and they're,
Mhm.
giving away this award and all that sort of stuff. Well, we got to give them something back.
Mhm.
And so it's just like trying to figure that out. And like, I'm usually pretty cheeky about it. And that's like one of the things I really liked is like, Alfred Hitchcock used to always make fun of his sponsors
Mhm.
in his commercial breaks. And I kind of like try to do that where I'm like, can acknowledge the audience, like, yeah, this is this thing that we kind of have to do,
Yeah.
but like we also know how corny as hell it is to
Mhm.
like suck up to the sponsors. And like I can't stand when like the first, you have all this momentum building up to a film festival, and it's just like we need to spend the first 45 minutes making the sponsors feel special. And it's
Mhm.
like, okay, well, you got over 1,000 people in this room and you care about like those 12 people, like
Mhm.
that's your priority.
Yeah.
So I try to fight against that, but also be gracious when people are supporting us.
Of course, of course. It would be nice if I had sponsors to add them in right after that
Yeah.
answer. That would have been nice, but I don't have any. Um, so in film school, you just as filmmakers, they learn a lot of rules,
Yeah.
restrictions. What would you say to filmmakers coming out of school who are, well, I have to do it this way because they taught us this in school, which happens a lot to fresh talent.
Yeah, I think the sad truth of it all is, and I think this is like a broader thing in this world, and something that you see a lot of people get really depressed about is when you're in school, any kind of school, a lot of what is rewarded is like obedience and following the rules and how much you can color in those boxes,
Mhm.
etc. And then when you get out into the real world, it's can be disheartening to see that the people who are like, fuck those rules, I'm going to
Yeah.
do my own thing, often those people are rewarded.
Mhm.
And so my thing is like, if you can't afford to do things by the book, don't do them by the book, right? Like,
Yeah.
it's so like looking at location permits and insurance, and like I don't want anyone to like just make things without insurance and break cameras and be responsible for that, but like take some level of risk.
Yeah.
Everything is going to be a risk to a certain degree, but like yeah, it's crazy to obsess. I think that this industry, in line producing, sure, and in bigger shows for sure, but like that like type A ness of making sure you do everything by the book,
Mhm.
like does not rarely will serve the project. It's
Yeah.
important when you have a lot of money because you don't want to get sued, but
Yes.
when you have very little resources, like I I I would highly recommend just not giving a fuck and focus on your project. Cuz like don't spend your time and energy on things that aren't going to end up on the screen cuz you don't get rewarded. No one cares how well, you make a short film, and um there is no fairness of like, oh, well, you did everything right and they
Mhm.
did things wrong.
Mhm.
It's like, well, that one went viral, that one got in all these festivals, and it's like,
Yeah.
but they didn't get their location permits, they just shot at the mall with no permission. It's like,
Oh, so be it.
sucks to
Yeah.
suck.
Yeah. That's a good point. Honestly, yeah, just ultimately it sounds like just create. No
Yeah.
more excuses. Just get up and do it. You can like if you want to create something then just do it. If you want to be in the industry, it's not easy. You have to make your own work.
Yeah.
So going back to Run and Gun, I want to know how you guys select a winner and how you sort of review the films because you guys don't have rules technically on how it should be, but do you guys have some things that you look out for without spoiling secrets, of course?
Oh, I try to be as transparent as possible. So we have two kind of, so one thing is I really try to take the politics out of Run and Gun.
Yes,
So now whenever people submit their like project at the end of 48 hours, we get them to submit the initial film without
yeah.
credits. So we're just people are just watching a raw film with a title.
Okay,
That's
yeah.
all the screeners get. And so we hire a team of screeners and a team of awards jurors. So the screeners usually are filmmakers who didn't participate in Run and Gun,
Mhm.
people that we know, some local, some not. It's a mix match, but we generally get like 12 screeners
Mhm.
to attempt to watch like all the films. Some of them don't finish, some of them do. Um, and each of the screeners rates each film from 1 to 10,
Mm.
and we just average those numbers.
Mhm.
And so that will give us our top 20, our top our top 40 essentially, which will curate into our main event.
Yeah.
And then everything else we'll curate into our screenings at the Rio, which we like this year we had 8 screenings. It's a lot.
Wow, that is a lot. Do you usually agree with the choices made?
Oh, like the top 20? And
Yeah.
never, no.
No?
No, but I create a fair system, a system that
Yes.
I believe is fair.
Yes, it sounds
Um,
very fair.
but I think the issue with it is the films that take the biggest risks
Mhm.
sometimes aren't rewarded because if you're averaging out the score of 12 people, well, that one that like took these like huge risks,
Mhm.
those aren't going to work. If it's a big risk, it's not going to work for 12 people.
Yeah.
It's going to really work for 5 of those
Mhm.
people, and the rest will either like hate it or dismiss it, right?
Yeah.
So that's like the flaw in the system there, where it's like you kind of want to have that hand of God, be like, no,
Mhm.
this one deserves to be in finals, but we keep it neutral there, and then from there we usually hire about 6 prize jurors, and
Mhm.
those usually are people with like a bigger resume. You know, they like this year we had like the head of the Directors Guild of Canada as one of
Wow.
them, and we had filmmakers from LA. We try to get it as less amount of local people as
Mhm.
possible, to keep the politics out of
Yes,
it.
yeah.
And those people then do all these rank ballots. We have like a mathematical formula and stuff like that. And ultimately, it is still kind of averaging and looking at people's rankings
Mhm.
and finding the top for each of those things. But even that jury, they don't get to be told who the other jurors are.
Mhm.
They never speak to the other jurors. It's all blind math. And
Wow.
so because I've been part of juries and other film festivals,
Mhm.
and every time it's the loudest voice in the room,
You're right.
and it's super political, and they only care about the identity of the filmmakers, and they
Mhm.
don't care about the films. And I just was like, I don't like that for
Yeah.
this festival. So we'll just go and see where the math lands. So it's not always the film I think is the best that wins. It's often not,
Mhm.
but I think it's pretty fair. But I also like
Yeah.
I hate that we do awards because so many people care too much about them.
That is true.
And so for like shits and giggles last year we were just like, okay, we're going to do best film, best film, second best film, third best film, and best student film, and it's
Mhm.
all going to be voted by the audience.
Oh, I love
Um,
that.
which was good, but then like people were like, "Well, it's not fair
Oh,
because the audience prioritizes this and that," and I was like, "Yeah,
can't please
you
everyone.
can't." But it's nice though for people. The thing that I like about doing it with the audience is like you can be like, "Well, blame the audience. They
Yeah, yeah, not my
It's
fault.
not my
Yeah.
fault. The audience didn't see that value in your film, and they're like,
Mhm.
well, it's gonna prioritize crowd pleasing films. Like, good. Let's
Yeah.
make crowd pleasing
Yeah.
films. We want to make this night fun.
Yes, exactly. In your opinion or your eyes, what are the fundamentals to making a good indie film?
I think like finding ways to surprise your audience, finding any ways to create tension, I think is really
Mm.
important.
Mhm.
Um, you know, uh, if a scene doesn't have any tension, that can really make you just lose, you lose caring about a film, right? Like
Yeah.
I hate to use the oldest example in the book, but do you know about bomb theory?
I actually don't think I
Okay,
know
that's
about
okay,
mom
that's good,
theory.
it's fine. So basically the idea is, say you and I are having like a 10-minute conversation in
Mhm.
a film,
Mhm.
we're talking in a cafe and we're talking about the most boring thing ever,
Mhm.
and all of a sudden boom, the whole cafe explodes, we
Oh
die
yeah.
in a fiery mess. It's
Mm.
like crazy.
Mhm.
As an audience member, you're watching that and you're like, this is boring.
Mm.
And then all of a sudden you're like, whoa, that's
Whoa.
exciting. And
Yeah.
then that high kind of disappears pretty quick.
Mhm.
But if we start the scene, you and I are talking in a cafe,
Mhm.
camera goes under the table, we see a ticking time bomb with,
Mm.
10 minutes on it and it's counting down.
Mhm.
Then the audience is all going to be gripped in on the scene. They're going to be like, oh my
Yes.
God. And we could be talking about the most banal thing, but they're
Yeah.
all going to lean in and be like, oh my gosh,
Something's gonna
there's
happen.
something's going to happen.
When's it
There's
gonna?
this
Yeah.
tension, right? So anytime like your audience can know something
Mm.
that the characters don't know, or maybe the characters know something and the audience is like, I need to
Mhm.
find out what's going on. There's that
Mhm.
tension there, right? So I believe any way that you can create that generally will engage you in a film.
Yeah.
There's all of a sudden there's stakes, there's something I care about, there's
Mhm.
some secret I know, some gossip, whatever. And like this happens in life, right?
Hmm.
You know, you see like a couple sitting across the way, you know, at a restaurant,
Yeah.
and you're like, oh, there's a couple there. But if I tell you, I'm like, I think that guy murdered his ex-wife, we're gonna be like engaged in
Yes.
there,
Yeah.
and it
Oh
doesn't matter
yeah.
what the fuck's going on.
We're
So
analyzing it. Oh yeah.
yeah, so like any way you can get like people to be like, you know, I don't know, I'm butchering what I'm trying to say, but you know what I mean.
Yeah, I get it.
So some tension, and then yeah, anything that you can do to surprise people, show
Hmm.
some new perspective. I mean, I think that humor can often disarm people. So even in a good drama, I think having moments of levity in there is good. And yeah, I think as long as you get an emotional reaction from your audience, that's what's important. It could be to offend them, it could be to entertain them,
Yeah.
it could be to make them laugh, to make them
Hmm.
cry. You just can't bore the audience, so you have to get them in.
Yeah, that is very, very fair. I mean, everyone wants to watch something to be entertained. Otherwise, they would just,
Yeah,
not turn on the TV or not go to these festivals. What advice would you give to either new or people who haven't decided they want to get into the industry yet and start doing filmmaking but want to, or to the new filmmakers? I mean, you've given a lot of advice today for new
sure.
filmmakers. So how about, yeah, for people who are like, this is an idea of something I want to do. What advice would you give to them for actually getting into it?
Don't.
Don't.
No, no. I mean, I'm like half kidding with that. It's so hard, and it's a game of like you win an inch, you go back a mile. It's
Mm-hmm.
not fair at all,
Mm-mm.
but sometimes it's not fair in your favor, and so it's I think like if you can go at it in a healthy way that like you don't attach your self-worth
Mm-hmm.
to this success and stuff like that. Like I don't understand how actors do it. Like to do all these self tapes and to be rejected so much and to still feel like you know you've got it in you when other people aren't seeing it and stuff like that. Like it's so tough.
Mm-hmm.
And so I think you have to be able to like take the work seriously, but like trying to take yourself seriously and
Mm-hmm.
that outside validation too seriously. You should make art because you find some fulfillment and excitement in it. Um, but like if someone's like looking to get into the industry to make money,
Mm-hmm.
like you're better off learning how to like serve drinks, drive
Yeah.
an Uber, you know, all that sort of stuff. Like there are ways to make money
Mm-hmm.
consistently. Working in film is not it.
Not the way to do it. Before I let you go, the
Okay.
last thing I want to know is what celebrities you are told you're most like.
Oh, I generally get two.
Yeah, I want to know if it's the ones I have in
okay,
my head.
what are the ones that you have in your
To
head?
me, you're a blend of Seth Rogen and Jonah Hill. Is that exactly it?
That is exactly what I will get. The third I get is Zach Galifianakis.
Okay, I'm not familiar enough with him
Did you
to
ever see
have
The
the parallel.
Hangover?
Yes, yes.
He's
Oh,
the
yeah, the one with the
yeah.
yeah. I get it now.
I get those are the three main celebrity
Yeah,
ones that I tend to get.
I love it. Okay. Give everyone your social medias where they can find
Oh
you,
man.
what things of yours they should watch.
Okay. So I am on Instagram mainly these days. One day I mean, I probably won't get into Letterboxd. Yeah, I mean, on YouTube, this is a Spoon Studios. I have a lot of my stuff there. If you want to see, you know, the some of the docs and stuff like that. I don't know.
Mhm.
It's search me on IMDb and
Mhm.
and you know, choose your poison. But yeah, I love creating and hopefully really what I'm trying to do more this year is like create some more bullshit and
Mm.
not really focus on the big.
Yeah.
Like I've got like you, I've got all the equipment I need to make stuff and I
Mhm.
just want to make stuff that is meaning to me and
Mhm.
if audiences like it so be it.
Yeah.
But I'm less like I gotta take over Hollywood
Mhm.
and all that sort of stuff. So yeah, come follow my Instagram and you might see some of my humble, weird, some of them, who knows? I got some really horny scripts that maybe might see the light of day. We'll see. I just gotta conquer some self-doubt, as we
Mhm.
all do, and
Yeah.
just allow the weird ideas in my head and to your head to
Mhm.
flourish. And
Mhm.
yeah, life's long. Have fun.
Exactly. Well, thank you so much for coming
It was a
on.
pleasure chatting.
And I hope all the filmmakers have their questions answered.
Yeah, go quit.
That was Film People.